member of the House of Representatives, a representative from right here in Hampton Roads, District 2 to be specific. Jen Kiggans spoke with our Leila Cox earlier today, and for the most part they're talking about the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA as it is oftentimes referred to. The House did pass the NDAA through. This is a 216 to 212 vote. 6 Democrats voting for the NDAA bill, 7 Republicans voting against the NDAA bill. One of those Democrats that voted for the bill, Don Davis from North Carolina, $1.15 trillion annual defense policy bill, that National Defense Authorization Act. Now the bill moves to the Senate, so it still hasn't gone fully into action. It now moves to the Senate, but the House passed it through today, and Representative Kiggans talked about that extensively with our own Leila Cox.
Last time we spoke about the legislative package for protecting our veterans. Today, we're here to talk about the passing of the NDAA, which I know you've been a staunch advocate and very vocal about, not just this year, but several years in the making. So my first question for you is, the NDAA includes significant investments in military readiness and shipbuilding. What specifically, or what provisions, in this year's bill where you think have the biggest impact, of course, on Hampton Roads for, our Naval Station Norfolk, Joint Base Little Creek, and our region's shipbuilding workforce, which we know is very, very, very big.
Yeah, the National Defense Authorization Act is just vital to Virginia's 2nd Congressional District because of the military presence we have there, the military families who live there, and the work that we did to put together a very comprehensive package of $1.1 trillion for defense spending. Was really a privilege to sit on Armed Services Committee and help to shape this policy. But over $60 billion for shipbuilding, including Virginia and Columbia class submarines, other ships that we need, carriers, future carriers, support ships. That's a really important and cornerstone piece of this. But there's also a lot of money for military families, the quality of life pieces that I've worked hard for on a bipartisan level with that task force we had a couple years ago. We put over $1.8 billion for housing upgrades alone. We know that housing, especially unaccompanied housing, is struggling, and we wanted to put our money where our mouth is and to invest that money. For me, there's also an important provision that I was able to get in there at my Wings Act, which looks at some of the neurological impacts of career naval aviators and just making sure that we're taking care of our aviators and their health beyond service. So that was an important piece for me. We had a TRICARE transparency amendment. That was mine as well. That requires TRICARE to notify our military families in multiple ways whenever they're changing their TRICARE policies. We had a pharmacy benefit expansion piece. That was my amendment to make sure that our military families can get their medications at a variety of places, including on base and civilian providers. So there was important pieces in there. But again, the shipbuilding piece, the incentives for technology integration, the incentives for skilled trade building, these are cornerstones of what the NDAA did, and including a 5 to 7% pay raise for our service members. We can never pay them enough. So depending on your, if you're a junior enlisted person, officer ranks, we have 5 to 7% pay raise, which is really important just to stay competitive. We have done a great job with recruitment, but retaining the service members that we have, their experience, their skill level is important, and we know that pay is an important piece of that.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. You answered my second and third question, which is about what were you most proud of, your accomplishments and your amendments, and also that pay raise. So thank you so much, Congresswoman. My second to last question for you is, we know that the House has passed the NDA after a contentious debate over several non-defense policy provisions. As the bill now moves to the Senate, what changes do you expect, or if you expect any, and what are your top priorities to ensure what remains in the final version?
Yeah, I hope they don't change much, because I am very happy with the House version as it came out. There's also an F-35 multi-year procurement study that's in there that's allowing that authority to, and I've been a big supporter of F-35s, bringing them to our East Coast master jet base. We sat down with the acting Secretary of the Navy as soon as yesterday and talked about the importance of bringing next generation strike fighter in the form of F-35s, preferably FAXX, to my East Coast master jet base. So there's some provisions in the NDA that support that as well. I expect little to change. I don't sit in the Senate, so you never know, and probably there will be some changes. The bill will need to go to conference where they will work out what those differences are, but we need to get this bill across the finish line, and it needs to have bipartisan support. I was shocked yesterday that we only had 6 Democrats vote in favor of the NDAA, and I am frustrated that defense is becoming a partisan issue. There's no room for that right now. We have to support our military men and women and their families across the spectrum. There can never be any question about that level of support from Congress. And our work on Armed Services Committee, it's why I love serving on that committee, because it has been uniquely bipartisan. We normally have 1 to maybe 2 members that vote against the NDAA in committee. We had 12 members of Congress, 12 Democrats, that did not vote for the NDAA in committee this year. And then yesterday, when the bill came to a vote on the floor, we saw only 6 Democrats support it. So that's frustrating to me. Defense does not need to be a partisan issue. Supporting our men and women in uniform and their families should never be a partisan issue.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Second to last question, for our military families that we know are all across Hampton Roads, what would your message be to them about the passing of this NDAA? And of course, it's passed the House, but it does have to pass the Senate if, both parties, agree, both governments agree. What type of hope can you offer, or when can we finally see, these pay increases happening and all these new initiatives for not only our service members, but our veterans and their families really come into play?
Yeah, so the pay increases would take effect in January, and they can be assured that that is a priority, this 5 to 7% pay raise. I think there's absolutely a majority of Congress that would agree with me. So that's an important piece that I know our families will feel as soon as January, but just supporting them, supporting the quality of life issues, the housing, the health care, the child care, the spouse employment. There's funding in there for new child development centers, but they need to know that Congress has their back. This is $1.1 trillion. It's a significant amount of money that we spend on defense, but when we chart out wartime and peacetime and how much of our GDP we are actually spending on our military, they deserve this. They are doing tip of the spear work, especially now in these tenuous times where the world is unsafe for a lot of reasons. And so we need to make sure that the people that we send in harm's way know that we have their back and we're supporting them financially. And that's what Congress has done. That's our role. There's more funding that's being asked for. So after we complete this August work period, we have a district work period that we will be home in our districts working. When we come back in September, we are hoping to expand some of this defense spending. I know there are even greater asks, and there are greater needs to take care of our warfighters and our families. But I look forward to the NDAA passage in the Senate. I look forward to working out the Senate and House differences and getting this bill completely across the finish line.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. My last question for you. I know TRICARE has been a very big part of your work in ensuring that care is given to our service members. But if I'm not mistaken, there is a provision in that bill that would restrict health care for transgender service members and their families. Is that something that you in particular were in support of, or what would your message be about that restriction in that health care, not necessarily for those service members that identify with that community?
Yeah, there was an amendment that was presented about the military and TRICARE actually paying for transitional care for transgender people that I voted against. I do not believe that federal taxpayers should be paying for that type of elective surgery. So that provision was put into the NDAA and was passed with a majority of support. But TRICARE is an important issue to me as a nurse practitioner. I work very hard to make sure that our military and our military families are taken care of, and that's why we put in the pharmacy expansion benefit amendment to make sure that our military families had a choice when they were getting prescriptions, especially out in town. We know that our military providers are challenged. We have so many people that they need to take care of. So our community care partners, our civilian care partners are a very important part of who takes care of my military and their families. We've worked very hard on reimbursement issues. I want our community care providers to know that Congress will make sure that TRICARE is doing their part to pay those bills so that they can continue to offer this care to our military families. We have so many in Hampton Roads. We rely on these civilian care partners. I was one of them as a nurse practitioner, but I want to make sure that our providers know that Congress too is putting some measures in place to make sure that they are adequately and timely reimbursed for the care they provide to our military.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. That concludes all the questions that I had for you. If there's anything else that you'd like to add, please do. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday and the rest of your weekend too.
Yeah, we're just proud of our military. We have so many active duty in Hampton Roads, especially our great Navy, all of our service branches. So I'm proud to represent being a part of this year's National Defense Authorization Act and having the privilege of sitting on Armed Services Committee. As always, one of the best things I do in Congress is getting this bill across the finish line. So I look forward to being in the district for August and getting a lot of work done there, but then coming back in September and seeing this bill get across the finish line so that our warfighters and our military families can have the tools that they need to get the mission done.
Okay, so Jen Kiggans speaking about the NDAA that passed through the House. Again, a 216 to 212 vote, a very close vote with the National Defense Authorization Act, $1.15 trillion annual defense policy bill passing through the House of Representatives. Again, 6 Democrats voted for the bill. 6 Democrats coming across the aisle, including North Carolina Representative Don Davis. 7 Republicans, however, voting against the bill. So a little bit of a mixture in terms of the support there. But overall, for the most part, along party lines, and now it passes through. And now it moves to the Senate, and we'll obviously be keeping an eye out. The Senate set to maybe make a decision on that today, though that's something that we are still monitoring for any updates that we have not seen.